enjoyed this man's work for so many years with ESPN and the Dallas Morning News and the New York Times. Right now, you can catch all of his work on his must-read Substack page, markstein.substack.com, at the Steinline himself on Twitter, the NBA Hall of Famer, Marc Stein, here on the Rich Eisen Show, the day the NBA Finals tips off in San Francisco. How are you, Mark?
Now that I got my phone on, I'm good.
Okay,
I'm good.
That's good. We need to talk. It's all good. I'm glad that your phone is on. So what is the overarching storyline you think of this NBA Finals? What is your bag on this one, Mark? What do you think?
I think a lot of people are going to have their eye on Steph Curry and the whole thing about is he finally going to win his first Finals MVP? And if the Warriors win, it's hard for me to imagine a scenario that he doesn't. But really, my curiosity getting started is it's all on the Boston side because they have no finals experience. And I do think it matters. This stage, it just is different. There is nothing like it. Even doing media day yesterday is it's just a different world that they've stepped into. And when you combine the uncertainty about how they're going to react to the stage, the uncertainty about the health of both Robert Williams and Marcus Smart. And then there's the stylistic adjustment of, Golden State just plays like nobody else with all the motion, with all the offensive randomness. So there's a lot to adjust to. And I really want to see how Boston handles all that because their defense is the best that Golden State will see this season. But again, there's a learning curve here, and we're going to see how fast they cope with it.
So, it's interesting you mentioned Curry first off because of the fact that, Iguodala was an MVP one year, Durant another, and he has yet to win one. And that leads to the legacy conversation for Curry. What is his legacy now, and what would it be? How would it be affected, do you think, by a championship and an MVP in these NBA Finals?
Well,
Mark?
I'm in the camp that actually says that it's a lot of nonsense and it's a lot of talk show fodder, and it doesn't really matter to his legacy. I don't think his legacy is dependent on a Finals MVP trophy. And I was one of the voters the year that Iguodala won in 2015. I have zero remorse about being one of the 7 people who voted for Iguodala in that Finals. He absolutely changed the tenor of that series at 2-1 down to a Cleveland team that at that point had lost Kevin Love and lost Kyrie Irving. The Warriors were teetering, and Iguodala moved into the starting lineup, changed the series, and in my mind, fully deserved that Finals MVP. And the reason people are so hung up on 2015 is because we didn't know in 2015 that Kevin Durant was going to show up 2 years later and win the next 2 Finals MVPs, and now Steph doesn't have them. But he is such a revolutionary as a shooter. This would be championship 4 if the Warriors win. They are dynastic to go to the Finals 5 times in a row and 6 times in 8 years. He's got all the numbers. He's got 2 regular season MVPs. I consider myself a pretty devoted NBA historian. I am not going to sit there and circle, oh, my God, no Finals MVP. And here's the other thing. He legit is so selfless. And his attitude, his leadership, the joy that the guy brings to the job is such a big reason Golden State has had the success they've had. I am convinced he would sign a document right now. He would give the Finals MVP to Clay or whoever else it is if it meant another championship. He wants to win it, yes. He doesn't like this conversation. I'm sure it bothers him on some level. But he'd rather have ring number 4 than Finals MVP number 1.
And then, you talk about Hall of Famers on this team and Clay and Steph and Draymond. What about Kerr? Is he a Hall of Fame coach right now?
Question.
Right?
No question. And I mean, he's already there. 3 championships in 5 years as a coach. The way the Basketball Hall of Fame works, you either get in as a player or a coach, or Bill Russell is in as both. He would all the rings that Kerr won as one of the best role players we've ever seen. That's not going to help him on the coaching front. But 3 championships is an automatic. He is a Hall of Fame layup as a coach.
And what does he do to make this all work, do you think, Mark?
When you listen to Draymond Green and you hear the buy-in that Kerr has from Draymond Green that tells you everything you need to know. I mean, I always say this. I stole this from a former GM, this formula, but I love to claim it as my own. When you're coaching in the NBA, the most important thing is your talent. But the second most important thing is buy-in. And if you are a coach and can get buy-in, your X and O acumen doesn't even, that is a distant third. You can always find assistants who are X's and O's mavens to help you fill in those gaps. But buy-in is so crucial, and just Kerr's, the way he relates to players from stars to the 8th, 9th man in the rotation, which is what, Kerr was at various stages of career, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th man. Kerr's ability to relate to all different kinds of players and get that buy-in, there's nothing better. And, by the same token, that's what made Ime Udoka's first season in Boston such a success. He came in there with a very hard edge and very demanding approach for a first-year coach, and look at the buy-in he has from this Celtics team. I mean, they are responding to him better than they did Brad Stevens, and Brad Stevens was a very accomplished coach, and it's made all the difference. So, nothing trumps talent. You have to have, in the NBA, you need great players more than any other sport, because it's only 5-on-5, and one guy can change the equation so much. But the buy-in piece, you just can't overstate it.
Marc Stein, the Stein Line on Twitter. Check out his must-read Substack to catch on not just his thoughts on the finals, but everything going on in the NBA every single day right here on the Rich Eisen Show. You mentioned, Udoka and what he's been able to do as a first-year head coach, and Brad Stevens going into the front office and seeding the stage for Udoka and then making some maneuvers to put this team in position. But there was no position at all once the calendar turned. They looked terrible. We weren't thinking finals. You were thinking play-in tournament game maybe for this team. When did it all click? You got a good story about when it started to click and why for the Celtics?
No, I'm in line with everybody else who is struggling to figure it out. Now, the East opened up to some degree because Brooklyn and Philly never reached their massive potential. And, Milwaukee in the end didn't have Chris Middleton, and that was a factor. But I don't want to take too much away from the Celtics team, because you know what? I also, as much as I said at the top how much I believe in playoff experience, I do believe in basketball karma too. And the Celtics went all out for number 2, and the Bucks kind of settled into the 3 seed, and going for number 2 meant you were going to have to play Brooklyn in the first round, and the Celtics faced that challenge, broomed the Nets into the offseason really impressively, and, they were rewarded. They had Game 7 at home against Milwaukee. That paid off, and, it is one of the remarkable stories, because we never see teams do. I mean, they were 25-25, and, to be 500 at 50 games, the last time a finals team was able to do that was way back in 1981, when the Del Harris and Moses Malone Rockets were only 40-42 and made it all the way to the finals. I mean, it's been a long time since we've seen a team do this, but the reality is their defense is that good. And the reason people like me said, don't even think about breaking up Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Just don't even think it, even though we talked about it ad nauseum. They are the prototypical wings in today's NBA. They're both super long. They play at both ends. They're the kind that, that's the 6'8" to 6'10" guy who can play at both ends. That's what everybody in the NBA wants, to play the 2, the 3, and the 4. You can play multiple, it's positionless NBA. Do not break those guys up. Give them every chance to succeed that you can, and Boston has been rewarded for that.
Marc Stein here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's talk about what's going on with the other 28 clubs right now. The Lakers, you on your Substack, terrific reporting about what Darvin Ham was able to extract from the Lakers front office in a way that Frank Vogel was not, and assurances of what he can do to set up shop and make it his own shop. What's your reporting on that, Marc Stein?
Yeah, it's assurances. The buzz in coaching circles that I've heard is that he's been promised a lot of autonomy to pick his coaching staff, which Frank Vogel was not, and that he was promised that Kurt Rambis, the Lakers senior advisor, is not going to be a regular presence in coaching meetings. And that caused a lot of surprise around the league when it emerged that Kurt Rambis, basically as a member of the front office, either in person or virtually, was a constant presence in Frank Vogel's coaching meetings. That's just not the way it's done in the NBA. So what I've been told is that Ham has been assured that that's not going to be the case now. But look, the Lakers haven't even announced this hiring. We haven't seen a Darvin Ham press conference yet, and there's going to be skepticism until this actually comes to fruition and we see that Darvin Ham has really secured these things. But it's how it should be. There shouldn't be a regular front office presence in coaching meetings. That's not common NBA practice. So look, Darvin Ham is a highly rated. He has a lot of fans in a lot of different cities around this league, and I think he's a pretty confident guy, and I think he's going to go in there, coaching those guys. And that's easier said than done. That is not an easy team to deal with. But it looks like LeBron is on board, and that's the thing. He's going to have to. Darvin Ham's going to have to coach LeBron and AD and Russell Westbrook if they're adamant about not moving. That's another topic that is greeted with a lot of skepticism. The Lakers are telling anyone who will listen, we are not going to attach first-round picks to trade Russell Westbrook. We're not going to make a bad trade just to move him. Me personally, I don't see how you bring Russell Westbrook back. I don't see how you can gather the group on the first day of training camp and try to preach a fresh start if Russ is still there. But we still got 3+ months to go. So let's see if Russell Westbrook really is still a Laker come the end of September.
Well, LeBron, who you said was on board with Darvin Ham, tweeting out a welcome to the team. So the announcement will come at some point. But LeBron has basically said, you heard him say at the end of the season, we just didn't have enough time on the court together, healthy, the three of them, Russ and AD and him. So maybe LeBron thinks they should run it back, or what? I mean, what happened at the trade deadline with nothing happening might have rankled him as well, and that needed some ironing out apparently. So where does the roster stand, do you think?
They're never going to say it, but I think the commonly held suspicion around the league is that the Lakers' top stars would prefer if there was a Westbrook trade and they were able to move him and they can really try something else. But the reality is Westbrook, he's when he opts into his player option for next season, he's going to be making $47 million. And even though that's an expiring contract, that's just a mammoth number. And you can't trade him without taking back long-term salary. You're not going to get back, $40+ million of expirings for Russell Westbrook. So there are legit reasons for the Lakers to be hesitant to just trade him any way they can, because they don't want to have to put first-round picks into the deal to move him, and they don't want to take back bad contracts that hurt their long-term flexibility further. But my question is going to be, is the best play for them to really just run it back and see if Darvin Ham can reach Russell Westbrook in a way that Frank Vogel couldn't, or is it better to just waive him and take the huge financial hit in the name of starting over fresh? Again, the messaging, the whispers coming out of Lakerland at this point is that, no, the Lakers don't want to waive him either. They're going to bring him back. But, that's what you say on June 1st or June 2nd. That's not necessarily how it plays out when we get to the end of September.
Did the Lakers knock on the doors of any coaches who are currently under contract elsewhere to try and get them?
Not the indications are not really, because you couldn't get them without compensation. I mean, first of all, we've all heard about Doc Rivers and Quinn Snyder. I mean, I've been reporting about Laker interest in Quinn Snyder since March, but Quinn Snyder is still under contract with Utah, and that situation hasn't been resolved. And there have been some pretty strong rumblings that one of the options that Quinn Snyder is considering is a year off to recharge. So I don't think, even if we see Quinn Snyder leave Utah this offseason, I don't know that diving into the Laker chaos is the move he wanted to make right away. And with Doc Rivers, from the moment Daryl Morey said Doc's going to be back, some people were interpreting that as, Lakers, if you want Doc Rivers, it's going to cost you draft compensation to get him. And the Lakers, they have so much work to do on the roster. They can't trade a first-round pick until 2027 or 2029. They don't really want to be spending first-round picks to get a coach. Like, that's just not a good play. So, I think the interest in Juwan Howard was very serious, but Juwan was pretty adamant that, he does not want to leave Michigan and does not want to walk away from the opportunity to coach two of his sons who are on the Michigan roster. So really no. And that's why, they actually ended up settling on Darvin Ham faster, I think, than people expected.
Marc Stein, a couple minutes left with Marc here on the Rich Eisen Show. Everybody check out his Substack for all of these nuggets and information that we're going to try and pry out in the next couple of minutes. You just mentioned Morey and the Sixers. What's his plan for Harden, and then the Nets with Kyrie and Simmons sitting out there, and what their future with Durant looks like, please?
Well, with Philly, I mean, I don't know how you could sign James Harden to a long-term extension anywhere close to the max he's eligible for, given where his game is right now. And I've been saying this since February. Daryl Morey got his guy in the end, and he made a lot of people who do what I do look stupid, because so many of us were saying, you're not going to be able to trade Ben Simmons. There's not a market for Ben Simmons. We haven't seen this guy play for months. Okay, well, he did pull off the Ben Simmons trade, and he handled that whole thing. It was really a GM clinic. But the issue is, he got his guy. Did he want the wrong guy? And by all indications, it looks like he did. There was some sentiment within the Sixers organization that they should be trying to get a player like Bradley Beal, who, as a shooter, I think you could argue is a better complementary fit next to Joel Embiid than, the state of Harden's game. There's a lot of basketball people would tell you that James Harden really needs a rim rolling center the way he plays now, where he is such, he's more of a playmaker than he is an outright elite scorer. And that's not Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid, he needs the ball in his hands too, and he's not a rim rolling, finish alley-oops at the rim center. That's not his game. So, there were questions about the fit as soon as Harden got there, but then the performance level from Harden is such that, I don't know what Philly's going to do, because I don't see any trade market for Harden coming off the playoffs that he just had. They're going to have to try to convince him to sign an extension at a number that doesn't rob them of long-term flexibility. But, Philly's got roster challenges that are almost as steep as the Lakers in terms of how to make that team better in an East that, at least at the top, is much more competitive than it's been. There is a lot of firepower now at the top of the East.
And then the Nets, they're going to do what with Kyrie long term?
I think you have to bring him back. It's not clear at this point if Kyrie Irving is going to be back. There's been enough kind of hesitancy that's emanated from the Nets to make people around the league wonder, like, are they really not going to bring him back? But again, Kyrie Irving hasn't played enough to justify a multi-year max deal. So I totally understand the sentiment of try to find a deal that, still max level dollars, but maybe isn't as long-term as Kyrie would like. He just hasn't been in the lineup enough to justify that. But my instinct is that I would expect him to be back. And then, the Simmons question, we haven't seen this guy play. We're coming up on a full calendar year. We have not seen this guy play. And so theoretically, he should help them tremendously with his defensive skills, his playmaking skills. he should be a perfect fit against alongside scorers of the Durant, Kyrie Irving level. But, how ready is he going to be to play basketball in the fall? I wish I was that smart to be able to tell you.
Do you do the predicting business? Do I ask you?
Oh, yeah.
Who wins? Okay,
Yeah.
so who wins the finals? What do you got for me? What do you got for me?
I went Warriors in 6. They're 21-2 in 23 playoff series under Steve Kerr. They're 21-2 in game ones under Steve Kerr. I mean, the guts of this team is still the same, and they have too much winning know-how for me to discount it. The Celtics have the capability of winning this series, and they have the defense to give Golden State a lot of problems, but I can't pick against guys who have delivered on the big stage as often as Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and Steve Kerr. I just can't do it.
Mark, you're fantastic. You always make me smarter. I love our chats. Look for my call over the next couple weeks as well. Congrats on the Substack. Great stuff. Must read. markstein.substack.com. Appreciate it. Let's do this again soon. Enjoy the finals.
Sounds good, guys. Be good, everybody.
Same to you, Mark. Enjoy the finals. That's Marc Stein. Thanks, Mark. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.